Good morning, everyone. Do a little sound check here. It's Tuesday morning. I found out this morning, I don't know why it took me this long to realize Tuesday is the new Monday. Nobody works on Monday. No one comes into the office. Tuesday, though, start getting a little bit of traffic, start seeing some people waking up. So it's Tuesday, America. Let's wake up. Let's look at some top trades. And we've got our man on the scene here, Greg Guenthner. Gunner, it's good to see you.
My week starts on Sunday night. So I don't want to hear this. The week doesn't start until Tuesday nonsense.
Well, me and you were here yesterday, but noted by my travel in here, Mondays, no cars, tumbleweeds. Tuesdays, cars. People
All
are
right.
waiting. They're like, hey, let's get in line. Let's get a coffee. So I think we've hit like some sort of 5-day weekend thing. Like I guess it's 4-day. Well, everyone, good morning. We're here. It's Top Trades. It's 11 Eastern. We are live. We took the recommendation of the people. I think it was just Steve-O, that we should go public with this. So we're in public now on YouTube. So if you're there, write in comments. Give us some likes, give us a subscribe, all the good stuff. But we've got a packed agenda today. I shared it around in the comments on YouTube, but I'll run down it really quick here again. We want to obviously talk about what's happening in the markets, because there's plenty of stuff going on. The concept that also that the bears are getting wrecked out there. If you think the market's going down, you're having a really tough time these days. We want to talk about some of the chop in the market. We want to talk about, can growth keep up this comeback? We'll look at ARK. We'll look at Tesla. We've got a lot of information on Bitcoin and a false breakdown and sort of like what we've been calling around the office, like classic Bitcoin, as to what's happening. If we can get there, we'll talk precious metals. We might talk copper. We might talk China. And besides the general market warm up, Gunner, which you can cover now, I'll let you roll on. We might as well, you were talking about this earlier in the green room about some earnings movers. We got Palantir, Disney. Palantir, we should do that little crying emoji because I hold that one. So, like, I don't know, whatever. Is what
Yeah,
it
it's a
is.
tough
It's
one.
the life of an investor these days. So, why don't you kick us off here? What are you seeing in the market? What do you like? What's happening this week? And then let's talk a little earnings and then we'll hit the agenda.
Well, like you said, I feel like we're in a market right now that is disappointing the bears. I think that's the nicest way that I can say it. Everybody's been waiting and watching, and this is me included, waiting and watching for this pullback that materialized in early April. And it didn't last very long. It didn't go very deep. And now it feels like everything's just floating back toward those all-time highs. So, I mean, there's really no reason to try to press your shorts right now. I don't think, unless it's in very select areas of the market. We are in a choppier period, or we should
Mhm.
be seasonally in a choppier period for stocks. But the reality is that stuff's floating higher. Everything's bubbling back to the surface. The market doesn't look too bad. Even yesterday on a sleepy Monday, and you know what, you are kind of right. The market does usually take, like a day to sort of decide what it wants to do. Usually Mondays are pretty quiet, especially, a Monday in early May. Sell in May and go away, as they say. Not entirely true, but that's how the saying goes. But usually I don't like to trade necessarily on a Monday unless I really see something I like. I like to see the market settle in and see what happens, and then turn around Tuesday. What happens then? Where do we go from there? And the market came out swinging yesterday, posted a nice little gain, and we saw the opposite of what we were seeing in back in April during the downturn, where we were seeing all that distribution. We saw all the selling toward the close. We saw a lot of gaps
Yeah.
higher, and then the market would sort of fade and then sell off toward the close. That was the opposite yesterday, where we saw a lot of buying toward the close. A lot of buyers just came in right in the last 20 minutes or so of trade and pushed the averages up to their daily highs and beyond. It was a nice looking day, lots of green out there. And today is kind of the same thing. Yes, we do have some bigger stocks in the red right here in NVIDIA, Tesla, Disney's getting smacked down from bad earnings. But for the most part, I mean, you can see the heat map here. This is the S&P 500. There's a lot of green out there. There's a lot of stocks that are, again, floating back up toward those highs, and we really can't ignore that. Like I said, I am also guilty of believing that, yeah, we should be getting a bigger pullback at some point here, but the market is not confirming that. And when the market's not confirming that sort of action, it's time to flip the script and to go with the flow. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here this week. I'm not looking so much on the short side and looking more to where can we take advantage of these bounces? Where's the next big bounce going to be? We were talking a little bit about just how strong stocks are. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that earnings reactions, for the most part, have been pretty positive. We'll get to some negative ones in a second, like Matt said. But Apple, a serial laggard so far this year, it peaked right here in the middle of December and posted this little false breakout right here and then just moved lower all during Q1 when all the other Mag 7 stocks minus Tesla were shooting higher. Releases what I would call not super exciting earnings by any stretch of the imagination, and gaps higher, is up almost 6% on the day. Pretty big move for the tech giant that Apple is right here. And then barely goes to fill this gap and bounces right here. And again, I haven't moved any of these lines. These lines were not drawn after earnings. This is just me extending these areas that I felt like were important for this stock. And you can see here how it's maintained this range and it's back up into this upper end of its chop right here. Is Apple on its way back to the 190s and possibly back to test 200? Maybe, if the market remains strong, I would think so. And then Tesla, yes, it's down today, but we had what looked like to be a pretty big false breakdown here at the end of April. Nobody wanted Tesla. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. Reports earnings, bang, gaps up here, and it's back in its range. No, it doesn't look awesome. I'm not super excited about Tesla stock, but that's a heck of
Some
a
Tesla stock. I got to disclose it. Tesla, Palantir, anything else that's red today. I think I probably own. We'll see. But
You own Tesla too?
yeah, dude.
Okay.
Dude, August 8th is coming. Full self-driving. Oh, I should control myself, but during my travel here to work, I'm pretty sure I was behind a Tesla self-driving, and we're in this horrible world where we're going to have bad human drivers and bad robot drivers for a period of time. Maybe it's like 5 years. And then finally the robots take over and they drive us all around, which will be great. But right now, I was behind this robot driver. Like, I'm pretty sure the Tesla was on like drive itself, and it was atrocious. It was
Really?
slow. It was like in the middle of like it was in the intersection is a weird intersection up where I live, and it was like in the middle of it, and it didn't know what it was doing. I was like, dude, this thing is on self-driving. I'm telling you. So
What was the driver doing? Eating a bowl of cereal? I mean, were
I
they?
saw both the driver's hands, and they were
Oh,
not on the
okay.
round thing. So I was like, that car is doing its own thing, and it doesn't know what it's doing. So enjoy this out in America, everyone. But I'm buying it. I think Elon's going to win somehow, right? He's a powerful guy. Tesla's his ticker, and maybe we get into full self-driving. Maybe they get something. So it's not smart. It's not a trading thing. It's just kind of like, seemed like a time when I could buy this thing when it seems beaten down. So maybe I'll add to the position later or whatnot. But yeah,
Well,
I kind of like Tesla here. I think there's going to be something there. I don't know.
it's not like what you're saying is wrong. It's not a terrible idea. The way I would look at it is like if it can maintain this gap right here. I mean, obviously it's faded a little bit into it back toward these pivot highs back in late March, but if it can maintain this level here without losing a little bit more and start to firm up, then I think you can start looking at maybe a breakout again back above 200, and that would be a decent looking bottom for this stock. That's, really, I mean, it's looked pretty darn bad
Yeah.
for
How
quite some
far out?
time.
Like if you go to like a 5 year, like is the pain enough? No, doesn't see.
I don't know. I mean, like it's
I might
still
be
well.
early. I might be early in this purchase.
No, I mean, but that's just it though. I mean, like I'd rather be, taking a shot at something like this where I kind of know where my levels are than grabbing something that's just streaking to new highs without any consideration for when I would get out. So it's not that terrible. And maybe the tide is turning. And I mean, you know how I think about these things. We could be in a situation where once price improves, then the narrative starts to change because that's always what happens. You always have a situation where everybody hates Tesla after it's already rolled over and gone down. And there's a million reasons not to like it. We had our closed editorial call about it, and there was a million different very loud opinions about what's wrong with Tesla and what's going on or what's right with it. It's an
Yeah.
emotional stock. It triggers a big reaction from everyone. Um, all that aside, the narrative will change positive if it keeps going up. That's just how things go. When Facebook changed its name to Meta and the stock went straight down for the entire year of 2022, one of the worst performers of 2022, nobody in the financial media and no analyst had anything good to say about it. And they mocked every single metaverse, animation that came out of Mark Zuckerberg looking like a Mickey Mouse cartoon character and all that stuff. All of a sudden, it starts performing again, and Zuckerberg's a genius. Everybody loves him. He's doing all the right things. He can't lose. He always knows how the tech world is going to react to things. And then he's a hero again after price has already bottomed out and moved higher. The same thing could happen with Tesla. I think because Elon's a little bit more political and he likes to ruffle people's feathers online, he probably is not going to get the universal acclaim that like a character like Zuckerberg is going to get. But at the same time,
Sorry. I was just going to say, I'd like to also get opinions out there. We've got a good amount of people watching this video right now. Just write in the comments. Do you like Tesla now? Do you not like Tesla now? If you're holding it, I mean, just write in because again, this is one, the jury's out. No one knows what's going to happen here. But it's interesting to see. We get to keep an eye on the chart.
I mean, I'm very skeptical of some of the things that Elon said in the conference call, especially about a lower price point vehicle. I thought the Model 3 was the lower price point vehicle. I don't know how you're going to squeeze any profits out of something even cheaper than that, which is a relatively cheap car these days. So that's kind of odd. I am intrigued by full self-driving, but I think that's kind of a known out there. Maybe it's one of those things that's right in front of our face that everybody's sort of in denial that's going to be a big thing, and then when it all of a sudden hits, it's like, oh yeah, it was so obvious. But I think there's still a lot of questions about it. I welcome great self-driving. That way I don't have to honk at people who are looking at their phones at red lights when they turn green. That would be nice.
Yep.
I think I had to do that 3 times on the way in this morning. So,
I mean, again, if you we get dumb fundamentals, but right, full self-driving, you're gonna have whoever the first mover is, they're gonna have a first mover advantage, and it's gonna last for a certain amount of time. It's probably years, right? It's kind of like Uber. How long did it take till Lyft came out? Because like Uber had this time where they were like, haha, we're getting all this money, and it was a great first mover advantage. I think full self-driving could have that advantage because it is not easy. It is very hard to be able to get these cars to learn all this knowledge and to train the data to do the right thing. Tesla is going to own that data. They're not going to give it to anybody.
Right. Well, and I think there's also there has to be that public buy-in too, and people are going to be scared of it. You could show them the numbers all day that like we have full self-driving, it saves lives, it reduces accidents, all this other stuff. People are still going to be very skeptical of it and afraid of it because it's a new thing, which makes sense. I mean, that's just how we are. So I think there's obviously going to be some bumps along the road, but at the same time, I think this could be a powerful reversal in the stock. The jury's still out. It's obviously back above this point of no return right here. It has work to do. But from a trading perspective, yeah, if it can hold, the 180s and start moving back toward 200, maybe this starts to get on people's radars again and everybody starts getting long. And then, like I said, that's when the story flips and all of a sudden Elon's back on top. He can do no wrong. Everything's going well. So we'll see how that goes now that earnings are out of the way. But yeah, we have 2 laggards back to price action. We have Apple and Tesla sort of rejoining the Mag 7 and saying, yeah, we can move higher too here. And then Google with bang up earnings, I mean, this looks like a potential earnings drifter here, gapping up 10% on strong earnings. And after closing a little bit of that window, now it's starting to push higher again. It's up almost 2% again today. I mean, beautiful chart, pushing those all-time highs right there. You can't deny the strength of some of these big tech stocks. NVIDIA, I mean, come on. I'm glad James is in here to make fun of my pronunciation of the video, but look at this thing. Every time you think it's going to die, and you can see kind of an unintentional theme kind of creeping into this call right here, where we're getting a lot of these false breakdowns below what appear to be, pretty important trading levels. That was an ugly 10% down day right there. Looking at looking at that in the vacuum and erasing the rest of this, if you saw this chart on big volume right there, it's like, okay, yeah, the video is
Yeah.
probably for a while. It's probably going to need months to sort this out. Well, that was wrong. And yesterday, it was up almost 4%. It was back above those pivot highs, those lower highs right there from the middle of April, in the middle of that pretty big semiconductor correction right there. Or like, look at, remember, SMCI was down, what, like 20-30% in a day? A lot of these stocks, I mean, they have recovered incredibly fast. There's obviously still a ton of appetite out there for these shares. Yes, it's down today, but I mean, you can't deny that that's a pretty impressive recovery from a
Yep.
mammoth stock that's gotten a ton of press that is no secret to anybody out there. So we really can't discount some of this action that we're seeing out there, especially in these bigger stocks. Again, I thought we'd see more downside. It's not the case. It's time to really dig in here and to see what can move and what's going to power us through this month right here, because it looks like we're headed higher. Is crypto going to do the exact same thing? That's another big question right here. And we've talked a lot about this chart too, haven't we, Matt?
Yep.
Where we have,
Crypto.
and we talked about this before it even happened. I didn't make any big predictions here, obviously, but I did say, watch this thing break down here. It looked like it's going to break down, because it was looking ugly. It was looking ugly here. It couldn't even make it to the halfway point of this chop. It couldn't even make it up to the high 60s. It got stuck at what, 66 right here.
Yeah.
And this was when semiconductors were rolling over and everything else. Nobody wanted anything to do with these formerly hot trades. And then we had 2 straight days where this thing went from 63 all the way down to tagging 56. Huge moves right here. And of course, what happens? The buyers jump right back in and push it back into this chop. I'm betting, because I have a bullish Bitcoin miner trade on right now. I'm betting that we get some traction here and we push back above 67 and get moving back toward the top of this range, just solely because of the false breakdown right here. Because we've talked about this before. This is what Bitcoin does.
Yep.
Bitcoin loves to dip below support, scare everybody, and then rip to the upside, especially if it's like 3 a.m. on a Sunday. Because why not? That's just how Bitcoin operates. We didn't see a lot of movement this weekend. It was pretty quiet. Yesterday, it looked like it was pushing above 65, and then it lost that. And then later in the evening, it was down in the 63s again. It's pushing a little bit off of there, but not a ton of exciting movement happening right there. Everybody's just sort of in a wait and see mode. If we get back above, I would say back above 65 at some point in the next couple of days and begin pushing higher, then I think we're going to easily come up to at least 70. Solely on the fact that everybody's on the wrong side of this trade right now. So,
Yeah.
and if we go back, we can go back in time here to see other times that it's done this exact thing, where it looks like it's going to break down and then it moves higher. This is a great example of it back here off of those late 2022 lows. You had this huge disbelief rally when it went from 16 all the way to 25. And then, if we're drawing lines here, I think this is where people started to get really nervous. They were probably nervous actually right here in this area, but they were probably really nervous when it started eating into the big part of this New Year's rally right here. And then what happens? It just rips higher. So again, Bitcoin's no stranger to these types of moves. We just have to be aware of that. And like I said, I'm not looking to get bearish and get on the short side of some of these plays. I think we're going to follow through the upside here because everybody flipped way too bearish, way too quickly. And now I think it's coming back to bite them.
Yep. I'm on the same page there. I think we rattled out some of the newer hands in Bitcoin ETFs. It was a little bit of a test. You go down into the low 50s and very quickly people are buying it up.
And it
again,
makes
they might just be the standard people buying it, but it might be there's just strong buying, and I think everyone's got their eyes on 100K or whatever it may be. So here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 100, and now like Tom Lee was on the tube the other day talking about 150 by the end of the year. So I think the aggressive price targets are there, obviously. So I'm interested to see how how this rally develops. I
What
do think
Sorry, I was just gonna same thing. I would just wanted to add if people could write in comments too. I saw the comments from Tesla. It seems like Tesla is mostly positive. There's a little bit of EV like pushback and stuff, but I don't look at Tesla as an EV stock. I know that's their main thing, but like it's Elon. Elon's got all kinds of stuff going on, but it looks like everyone's positive. Seems like there's a decent amount of people holding Tesla. What are the thoughts on Bitcoin in general? And again, that would kind of mean the whole industry. And then you have Bitcoin miners and all these different things, but like you like Bitcoin here? Do you think it's going to crap out and head down into no man's land in the 40s and 50s, or is it going to make a run at 100? If you want, right into the comments and we'll check them out. We'll be looking at them as we go further. So sorry
I think
about that. I rudely interrupted you.
I think we need to break 75 before we start talking about 100, because we have this big chop that we're in right now, and we're back into it after this false breakdown, which makes me think that we're headed higher just because we broke below those levels right there. But again, you know how I am. I'm much more adaptable and willing to change my mind if price proves me wrong. But I think that with everything going on, and the narrative this year has been twofold. There's been the Bitcoin ETFs and then the halving, and those things all, they're sort of piggyback each other. I think this was the halving right here, wasn't it? Like
Yeah, right
around
around the
20th of
20th.
April, right here. So this was the halving right here in this chop, and it rallied a little bit, and then it died from there. And now it's picking back up. That makes perfect sense to me too, because again, when these shakeouts kind of line up with these expectations following news events, then my ears are perked up at it, because too many people are just assuming that there's no chance it's going to drop because of the halving or whatever. You know how investors start to think about these things.
Yeah.
And then they get shaken out. And once they get shaken out, then it can rally. That's just how
Look,
it goes. That's how it went with the ETF approvals too.
yeah. Look in the lower right, it's got like little info on TradingView. It says 18 minutes ago, Michael Saylor issues bullish Bitcoin tip. Oh, really? Michael Saylor's talking bullish about
Who
Bitcoin?
thought?
Why not bring up MicroStrategy? What is MSTR? Might as well see what that thing looks like. If you don't know, Michael Saylor is the guy that he took his whole company. He's like, we're just going to buy Bitcoin forever.
Yeah.
So this is just like basically a Bitcoin holding company.
And I mean, yeah, you could argue that like what we have here is, a potential breakout here of this shorter term downtrend. It looks like that's the direction it's moving in, and so maybe that's an indication too that like this move lower was a decent shakeout. Again, like I like the miners for short term momentum trades. They kind of attempted to lead the way on Friday, and that move has fizzled a little bit, and they're just sort of sitting around waiting, and that's fine for right now. But one of these groups is going to go, I think, at some point, unless everything just completely falls apart. Which every day that passes, it seems like that's not going to be the case. But unless everything falls apart, I think the path of least resistance here is higher. I think there's enough skepticism now in the market, and we've gone through enough chop where we haven't seen new highs since the middle of March. Where enough people have sort of like forgotten about it, and they're already kind of stuck in that spring summer market malaise where they're not really thinking about it. Now's a great time to rip higher in people's faces. So yeah, everybody's mind's already on the beach or school getting out or whatever else.
Another interesting point that this is the first time we get to see it a little bit more mainstream. And this was Chris Harris, our editorial director, that brought this up because he was talking about it in a little bit more of the Altucher camp. But on the 15th, you're going to get 13Ks, right? Where we start seeing what funds are doing what with what. And this would be a time where funds, since these are now real ETFs, we can start seeing like, oh, funds are actually buying, and you can see which names are actually buying. So that might be interesting because like, I don't think they would be going heavy into the miners. They wouldn't go in heavy on a non, like sort of like the offshoot ways to invest in Bitcoin. Now all of a sudden it's mainstream. Like how many funds actually just loaded up? Maybe it's a lot of them. So that's going to happen in between now and the 15th. We'll get all that info.
Yeah, I mean, I think all that's compelling, and I saw a story on Bloomberg that I haven't read yet, but I saw the headline that mentioned that the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust saw its first inflows since the ETFs were approved earlier this year. So that's pretty interesting too. So we're seeing these rumblings happening under the surface. But again, solely focusing on price. I love false moves. False moves produce fast moves in the opposite direction, usually because everybody's on the wrong side of the canoe. That could be the case here. We just need to see if it really gains traction after sort of hanging out here just below 65, as we've been doing now for about 4 days. So I want to see if that expands. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. We can move on. But that's where my mind's at right there. I think if we go to other alternative investments like silver and gold, we can see some very interesting activity as well. Silver, last week we talked about how it might have just gotten too hot to handle up here, marching too quickly toward the sun and $30, and how it might need to retest 26. Again, haven't changed that line. That's been there since last week. And we have the nice springboard bounce off of 26 so far. Really nice move on Monday. The dollar's cooled off a little bit, at least it did yesterday, and precious metals took advantage. Silver is bouncing. It's been a volatile run, obviously, and we've got caught up in some ugly chop since the middle of April. It's kind of funny when you have a situation where semiconductors and silver and gold are kind of moving in the same direction at any given week, but that was certainly the case toward the end of April there, when everything was just sort of being sold off. We do see the nice bounce here at 26. That's exactly what we needed to see right there. So near perfect retest, and now we need to see if it's going to pick up where it left off and push back toward 29 right here. Gold, kind of the same deal. Gold obviously took off well before silver did. Silver's just sort of now getting into that buy-in phase where folks are more interested in it. It's been a dead trade for so long now. It's taking some time to really play catch up here. But I mean, this run was pretty epic from all the way down here to faking out below 2,000 and then running all the way to 2,400 before kind of settling in. No reason to be bearish on this at all. Just said, even though we're back up here in the stratosphere, I think that it's looking pretty solid. And, we're seeing what we need to see here, which is just some pretty normal consolidation, not a ton of give back. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised when things started getting a little bit shaky here after this one candle right here, to see it sink back down, closer to maybe 2,200 in this area, but it's held this area pretty well. So we'll see if it does push above those highs, and maybe I'll get more excited about it in the short term for another big momentum move if it can crack like 2,350. If we can see that in short order without like another big red candle here, then maybe we're back on track for another move higher in gold. But I mean, long term, obviously, the farther we pull back, the better this looks, and the more extreme that move looks right there. And the fact that it's holding those levels, I think, says volumes about there's an appetite for gold out there now that we haven't seen in a very long time. And I do think, and we've talked about this for months now, I do think that there's a secular change that's happened in this market right here. To go along with that, copper certainly looks interesting too. And I'm going to hop back over here to FinViz to talk about that. It's not doing much today, but I mean, you can see here.
Yeah, that looks good.
While gold has and silver even more so have corrected a little bit stronger from those peaks in late April, copper has pretty much ignored that. I mean, yeah, it did have a few days there where it pulled back, but this is still very much in play. This bigger move here from that breakout above $4, and we're all the way to 460 now. I think this might have more to go. I mean, it might run into some trouble here below $5 because this has been kind of an area where it has run into some sellers back in the middle of 2021, and then again in late 2021 and early 2022, where it fizzled out right here. But if it can come up here and consolidate a little bit more, I mean, sky's the limit for this one right here. And again, the further back we go, this was the peak of the previous commodity supercycle. I think back here, that's probably mid 2011-ish. It looks like that's when we had that big gold push toward 2000 and that big silver push toward, what was it, 50, Matt? You'd remember better than I would. Yeah. But
50,
yeah, I mean, that was
ounce.
the end. And that was the end of that that secular bull run in commodities that started in the very early aughts, following the dot-com implosion, and then a decade of pain. I think that this rally began right here. Post COVID really took off. That breakout had to come all the way back there and test it. Now we're pushing back higher. I mean, this could be a pretty monumental move higher right here. I don't know what that means for inflation or anything else. I know that there's a lot of chatter going on about like huge copper demand out there. I don't know what that says about the economy. I don't really subscribe to the whole Dr. Copper narrative so much anymore. But I'm very interested to see how this chart plays out. And in the short term, it looks really, really good. So potentially a trade there. You guys know my favorite copper trading vehicle, FCX. Yeah, it's gotten wonky because it got too hot, obviously, and with the rest of the metals getting kind of shaky and choppy right there, it's been bouncing around between 47 and 52, but now it's creeping back toward the top of that range right there. It feels like this is just a big sloppy consolidation, and it's gonna blast higher again. So I don't
Ooh,
see anything really standing
yeah.
in its path. Um, going back, past couple years and even pre-COVID right there. So on the lookout for this thing to move higher right here. And then we have Southern Copper too. What's the ticker for that? SCCO? Is that
Mm,
it? Yeah,
yep.
looks pretty much the same. Doesn't trade as violently as FCX, so I don't really like it as much. But at the same time, another really good looking chart. Yeah, the consolidation's a little wonky right there, but at the same time, the demand is there. Um, and I don't see a lot of chatter about copper in the mainstream quite yet. Remember a couple of years ago when lithium was all the rage due to all the battery stuff, and that's
Yeah.
kind of fizzled. Copper really hasn't had its due, and maybe again, price leads narrative. Maybe we can be in a situation where copper blasts past $5, and then all of a sudden it's all anybody wants to talk about. You
Yeah.
know, new commodity super cycle stuff. So
Someone
intriguing
just
to
needs
see.
to corner a market. Just find one market and corner it, and then everyone will wake up to the whole entire commodity sector. They'll be like, "Oh crap, we need this stuff," and it's kind of a game of who's got it.
I,
And
mean, I would corner the copper market. I don't know if I have the funds to do that.
maybe margin account or something.
Yeah,
Get enough people
that would be an interesting experiment. But
stockpiling copper. But yeah, we're using. I mean, I feel like we're just going into a world where we're using a bunch of copper.
I
The
mean
charts leading the way.
that's what they say, and yeah, the chart price don't lie. So I mean that's what we're seeing out there. And again, I'm not looking on the bearish side for these. I'm not looking for these to reverse lower. I think that path of least resistance here appears to be higher. And despite the fact that we can't draw like a perfect little flag or pennant on some of
Yeah.
these charts, it's looking pretty juicy right now. And I know uranium's been going up too.
Yeah.
Um, I
If
have
you
a
want to, yeah, go for uranium. And if you want to humor me, maybe we go into like there's like some electricity stocks where again, I think that space is in maybe 18-month zone where it's going to be going up. There's Camco.
Yeah, CCJ looks good. I mean, this is a tricky trader. I got a bad entry on this one. But it's one of those stocks that loves to just reverse in your face. You can see how it's done that a lot in 2024. It's not one of those stocks that just steadily moves higher. But I mean, uranium as a whole, this is the Global X Uranium ETF, URA. This line here looks a little out of place at the moment. I'd probably put that back right here. Um, but it looks like it's headed toward another big breakout.
Yeah.
I've seen some scattered news stories about uranium here. And again, maybe this is one of those things where we just need to see price sustain and really start to break out here, and it
Um,
gets a little bit more attention.
do you want to pull up TLNE? I think Talon Energy. That one's not from me. I got it from a colleague, and I didn't know much about it, but when
Oh,
I looked at the chart, I liked it. So there's
yeah.
something there. That one, I think it IPO'd. I don't think it was if it was a SPAC and it's $106, then it's the greatest SPAC that's ever lived, but I don't think it was a SPAC. But that's a uranium play. It's a I think they're like in limit like maybe SMR type uranium play, but either that or connected into
It's
the grid and that kind of stuff. So
and it's
yeah,
over
so
the
and that's
counter.
only been out. It's only been out for a little while.
it says it's OTC. That's interesting. Yeah, this
Oh
chart's
yeah,
going straight up.
this thing's a little baby.
Is this the first SPAC ever to not go straight down?
I don't think it's a spec. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think it was a real IPO or a takeover or something
Well,
like
something
that.
was
So
going
yeah,
on. I mean, you can tell when the chart looks funky and then all of a sudden it just goes something happened. Maybe it was a reverse
yeah, they
merger.
might have just bought a Michelle
Yeah.
company or something.
Yeah. So I
Either
mean,
way, that chart just keeps going up. So that's one. And then the other one that keeps going up, that one's an OTC one. So again, play at your own risk. And the other one is PWR. That's like Quanta,
yeah, I've heard you talk
Quantus,
about this. Have
whatever.
we looked at this one before?
Like that's another, that's like an electricity stock. This one's a big one, but it's like the to speaking your language, like the chart's telling a story here. It just keeps going up. And these are just like, they're not utilities, but they're like electricity plays that have a little bit more upside. I mean, TLNE is uranium, but it's two tickers that have been doing well.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting. Yeah, and like, I mean, there's also been I've been keeping an eye on some industrial names that have been interesting. I mean, we've talked a lot about GE. GE is one of those, you know, perfect situations where, and you can see the chart looks great. This is one of those stocks where I'm always like, ah, it's kind of slow, but maybe I should trade it. And then I don't. I look at it again a couple weeks later, it's just higher. It just keeps on going.
yeah,
You know, like they've been improving their business. They spun off, what is it, the health division, or was it aerospace, or one of those things? They're spinning off a lot of stuff.
yeah, I think health they spun out.
Yeah, so this is the aerospace, the side of things, and obviously like exploding higher. A great technical tip is to always watch companies that get kicked out of the Dow or kicked out of indexes, because once they cycle through those bearish periods, they usually come back with a vengeance if they're not zeros. And GE's doing exactly that, and has been for some time. It looked like it was going to do it right before COVID. I had my eye on this thing back in 2020 because it had gotten kicked out of the Dow somewhere around here. I don't remember exactly when, but I think it was in 2019. It's booted from the Dow, and then it looked like it was shaping up for possibly moving higher, and then it got crushed by COVID and didn't really recover and was kind of wonky. And then finally in 2023, it gets its act together. And it's been moving straight up ever since then. I mean, the heck of a mover right there. If you had the foresight to, buy this thing under $50, you're doing really well with this
Yeah.
stock. And like, what a nice tight uptrend. Can't beat that. And we've talked a lot in chat. We've been talking about this one too, about 3M. Different but similar situation right here. Nice earnings move right there, and it's been kind of bleeding off a little bit of the excess enthusiasm. I like this as, maybe this is the next type of move in one of these names, one of these old school names, little Minnesota mining action right here. Can this stock break out of this base and then put in one of those nice tight uptrends like we've seen from G? I think it's a possibility, and it's worth watching right here. Looks like it's turning things around, and I think are they also spinning off segments? I'm not really sure, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have my fundamental hat on this one, but I do like the idea of a turnaround here, just based solely on price. Obviously, like, looked like it bottomed out in the high 60s right there, and then we had some serious back and forth after a negative earnings reaction back in January, but it's obviously moved a lot higher since then. And I think this whole range right here, if it can get up to 100 and then consolidate, that $100 magnet right there, that should complete. I think that should complete whatever this base formation is that it's been working on since 2022. So I'm interested to see where this one goes. I have this kind of on the back burner to watch moving forward. Other stuff.
What's the ticker? We'll get a couple questions in. He says, Holly says, have you heard of XLU? I don't know what XLU is. And then there's another one, PATH, P-A-T-H.
XLU is the utility spider.
Got it.
Um,
Well, that one looks good.
yeah, utilities have been
Boring
screaming.
old utilities are
Yeah,
doing the thing.
yeah. The safety trade has been screaming higher right here. I'm interested to see how far it goes right now. Now that other parts of the market have improved, because this is more, like staples and utilities are like kind of lumped together as kind of a safety trade. It's not really something I trade in the short term, but I have been watching a lot of these stocks have been moving higher, and you're in kind of like a weird market when you're running screens for like 20 and 50-day highs, and I like to sort by sector just to see what's moving, and you get pages and pages of utility companies. You're like, oh, okay, like things have gotten a little difficult if like you're watching utility companies post new short-term highs, and they've obviously been looking really good lately. But
Yeah.
again, not something I really like to trade, just because they're not really great momentum movers, and they don't really attract a lot of attention. Um, Retail names, however, we're about to kind of springboard into some retail earnings here this week. I think, what is it, Home Depot, Matt? That's one of your favorites.
I don't know.
Um,
It's my favorite to go to take more trips there than I thought I was going to have to for a construction project.
well,
Like
that's how they get you.
that's where they get the money.
But
The second and third
I
trip.
believe they're reporting soon. And yeah, let's see. Is that later this week?
That's just a
No, next
shocking
week.
chart where it's like, like you would think because no one can move and houses or whatever, and it's like you would think that Home Depot would be pretty decent right now, but that's a crappy
Yeah.
looking chart for the year.
But the Home Depots and the Walmarts of the world, they're reporting soon, I think. Yeah, Walmart looks really good, but they're reporting next Thursday as well. There have been some like specialty retails that like have amazing charts, like stuff you wouldn't expect, like Dick's Sporting Goods. That looks really good. I don't know how they keep that business going as well as they have. You would think that like the internet would be eating their lunch, but I guess they're niche enough where they've carved out a good
Yeah.
space there,
I
and
mean,
they
you've
have
got kids, I've
really
got kids. There's nowhere, there used to be Sports Authority, there used to be Modell's, there used to be all these places. They're
yeah,
nowhere. There's one place if you want to get sporting goods, and it's Dick's. If you want to go there in person and be like, this, like have your kid pick out something or try something on, because the internet sucks at that type of stuff. Like if you
right,
want to get
yeah,
cleats, like I'm
yeah,
going to Dick's.
yeah, exactly. You got to, and like I mean, like Dick's obviously does a really big online business too, but I mean, you know how the negative news was about this, like all the shoplifting and all that stuff. I mean, Dick's was front and center
Mhm.
dealing with a lot of those
Dick's
issues with.
shrinkage. Remember the subject line that never
Oh,
existed?
oh,
It
oh
was
no! I didn't
supposed
say
they had shrinkage
it.
from
Yeah.
their inventory, and it was Dick's Sporting Goods shrinkage. That was a big problem for them.
Oh, I didn't say that. Are we gonna get censored on YouTube now?
Probably. Oh, that sentence was very well wordsmithed, and it's
All
just
right.
true. They had inventory shrinkage, and it was a big problem.
I
People
feel
were
like I'm on a
stealing
Seinfeld
stuff.
episode. Uh, Here's another one for you that's not as funny. Tractor Supply.
That's
Um,
serious.
I love Tractor Supply. What a fun store to go through.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever walk around Tractor Supply.
yeah,
My
I
son
do.
loves Tractor Supply. We can spend a lot of time walking down the aisles of Tractor Supply. But look at that chart. That's nice, and it had a nice negative earnings surprise right there, and it moved up. So go figure. But that looks good. Looks like it's trying to come out of the consolidation here. Um, this
Look at
is
that
one of
poor little
those.
line. That poor little line you drew at some
Yeah,
point in
where did that?
time.
I don't even remember drawing that. I
Yeah.
must have been like talking about it short term for some reason, but like you can see the breakout and retest right around in that neighborhood right there. Um, but killer chart, one of those stealth movers. Nobody talks about this stock, but looking really good. Um, and again, earnings are in the rear view right here. But these little specialty retailers. Now here's a stock you've never heard of, Matt.
All right,
Um,
go for it.
it's called Carvana.
I love Carvana.
Um, do you want to talk to us about Carvana earnings right here?
No, I can't. I made money on the stock. It was like 2 years ago, but I'm not invested in it. I just like Carvana. I feel like it's a good business. I've said this before. I bought a car at Toyota like recently. It's horrible.
Right.
It's the worst. They're like, sign all these papers, do all this stuff, go through all these pieces. If you go into Carvana and buy a car, it takes 20 minutes. They
Yeah.
connect to your bank account electronically, and then the car shows up on a flatbed like 2 days later.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is such an amazing story because I mean, this is the one stock that I wish I had grabbed onto back when everybody said it was going to be a zero. I mean, it's really easy to play Monday morning quarterback or Tuesday morning quarterback, as it may be today,
Yeah.
and say everybody thinks Carvana is a zero, that this thing's a pandemic stock that's going nowhere. It's going to declare bankruptcy. I mean, that was all throughout 2022. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, obviously, it was probably a little rich back here, approaching $400. in 2021 when everybody was just buying up anything that
Dude,
moved.
look at like June
But
2022. See that little jump from June 2022, it like bounced out and then that little
yeah,
jump. That's where I made my money. That little run right there.
great trade. That's a great
Yeah.
trade. But I
And
mean,
then I was out. And then
I
everyone was
think
like, man, it's poor. But I missed that whole downside. I was out by whatever, by that little piece.
I think this is when people started saying the B word.
That is.
Right
Yeah.
around here when people
Yep.
were like, they're going bankrupt. There's no way they're going to maintain this business. And then everybody saw this earnings report. They're like, I got to get the hell out of this thing. I
Dude, it
mean,
was a $3 stock.
it's a $3 stock. It was $3 stock. This is a career maker right
What
here.
are we doing with
You know,
ourselves?
now this is obviously this is survivorship bias too, because there's plenty of stocks that have done this, and everybody's like, this is a zero, and then you buy it thinking maybe it's not, and it does go to zero. So, but I mean, what a comeback from this stock right here. I mean, just consistently blowing the doors off with what was the 33% gain following those earnings. I mean, it seems like it can't lose right now, and maybe because I'm speaking so highly of it, it's gonna get cut in half over the next 3 months. Who knows? But pretty incredible. Then, like I said, these little niches that you can get into. I kind of lump this in with some of the retail names. It's a specialty retailer, I guess you could say. But it's interesting how some of those are looking so good when a lot of the news, you know, or a lot of the expectations are very mediocre. Everybody's talking about, you know, and I think there's a lot of truth to it too. I'm not saying that this is fake news, but I think there's a lot of people talking about pricing power and what's going to happen with inflation and how strong the consumer really is. How much money do people actually have? I think all those are valid conversations to be having about the economy. But then you see stocks like this, that are breaking that narrative, and that usually gets my attention.
Yep. Um, let's see. We'll see where this thing goes. Again, Carvana is kind of a no touchy at this point, but it's a
Yeah, it's up
great,
there.
interesting
Up there.
story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we were talking about Wingstop. Weren't we talking about Wingstop last
Yeah.
week?
What happened? What happened in earnings? See, they had earnings and not much happened.
Not much happened, but I mean the stock's gone straight up for a year. Um, and the valuation on this, like you get a CFA on this thing, and they start bleeding out of their ears looking at the balance sheet. They're like, it's too expensive.
Can't
Yeah,
sell
it
as many
probably is.
wings. The chicken wings
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
sell as many.
Yeah, how could they be making this much money?
You need to have 4,500 stars and sell 10 trillion wings. And it's like, and then you look at the chart, it's like, oh, it tripled.
I need to do some due diligence and actually eat at Wingstop and determine whether or not it's good, and then that will determine whether I want to buy the stock. Um,
Are we going here? Because this is dangerous. It's lunchtime.
that's true.
There's at least two more tickers we could roll into here. Wing, and then we could go
Kava.
Kava, and then we could go CMG just while we're here,
Kava
while
looks
we're in the
good too.
neighborhood.
Kava looks good too, and it's another very richly valued stock. I mean, there's no way around it. This thing's expensive, and it's a recent IPO too, but it's at all-time highs today. I mean, this will be
Look at
all-time
that line
lows.
you drew, dude. You're a little magician, but I think we missed this trade right when it retested that.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not perfect, but yeah, that's
Mm.
the idea of these, is like these springboard moves. Little Wyckoff springboard action right there, throwing some terminology at you. I mean, that's what you get on some of these where they overshoot. I mean, nothing moves in a straight line, right? I mean, you can still be bullish on it, overshoots, and then it needs to rest a little bit, and it comes right back down to the scene of the crime, and then rallies. You see this a lot in some of the strongest stocks. And again, if you're paying close attention, and again, this is Monday morning, Tuesday morning quarterback in it, but if you're paying close attention to this, you see these potential bounces, and you try to put in a trade maybe here in this big candle right here. It wouldn't have really worked, or here this one, this bullish engulfing candle right here, right here at that bounce. Maybe at the end of the day when it closes, say, hey, I'm going to give that a shot, and then that would be a decent trade. It'd be a great entry point. So there's a little trading tip for you right there, how to approach those. But yeah, I mean, all these, and like, I don't want to eat Domino's.
CMG, did they do their split yet? Because
I don't know. I don't think they split till the summer, but they really need to. It's a $3,000 stock. They really need to split this thing, man. Like, can't buy options.
It's a 50 to 1, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be big.
So then it's like nicely down in a reasonable price range as opposed to $3,100 for the taco
But I mean,
stuff.
this has earnings drift written all over it. Where I mean, it reported, and then you get a big 6% move higher, and then it follows through, and now it's just sort of moving sideways here. It hasn't given back any of this. It hasn't eaten into that post that one post earnings day range at all. So looks really, really strong to me. And again, crazy good chart going all the way back to November right here. This thing broke out like the day the market started moving higher after earnings on October 27th. That was like the week that everything just started exploding off the lows when there was nothing but despair out there. And it was a mere $1,800. And now it's above 3K. So pretty impressive. I can't wait for this stock to split. Please split your stocks.
Yeah, do
All
some
you,
options on
all
it.
you Fortune 500 CEOs that are listening to this trading call right now, please split your stocks. Don't let me have to deal with your $1,000 plus share prices. I don't like it. So yeah, like there's a lot of good stuff. I think, we talked a little about this last week, but I think this is kind of an inflation, or it's a commentary on inflation as well. When you have like Domino's Pizza and Chipotle, which are, I think, Domino's is obviously a great value for the calories per dollar that you're getting right there. But when you have stories about the $18 Big Mac meal in California or whatever it is, I know the prices are different out west, versus like being able to buy 2 large pizzas for $20 and feed your whole family at Domino's. If you're battling inflation, the Five Guys burger is not going to win. The $18 Big Mac meal is not going to win. It's going to be like the cheaper stuff. And I think
Why
kind
don't
of
we pull
falls
up Shaq? Let's just pull up Shaq just cause. Man, Shake Shack. Shake
Shake Shack
Shack is
looks
a
good.
quality
That's a good looking
restaurant.
chart. Not bad for a $10 burger, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's a mess. The further back you go, you can see this has been a messy chart for a while here. It looks like it's improving. Um, and it held its ground following earnings, so that's not too terrible. But I think that the momentum is going to be in these other names that we've talked about, and I mean it's been demonstrated. So,
Yep.
And then I'll close it off with what I wrote about this morning in the Morning Reckoning, where I was talking about how well Google has done, and earlier in the call we talked about how Apple and Tesla played catch up, and now the Mag 7 is like they're all firing on all cylinders right there. I think the worst looking one right now is Meta, just because they took an earnings dip, but they were so strong earlier in the year that it's not really that big a deal. But Google's exploding higher. The bearish argument was that the spending is slowing down, and that's obviously not true. YouTube ad spending's through the roof. They posted huge numbers. Social media as a whole is doing really well right now, and now the narrative has flipped from we're in a spending recession to we're back. Advertising is back, and we're seeing that even through the crappy social media companies. Snap. I mean, this thing will not stop. Obviously, this is a crazy chart because it was looking like a zero. It was looking like a Carvana zero back in February. These earnings were atrocious. The company is not well run, and analysts generally don't like it. It's a great trading stock. I like to trade it because it's cheap and it moves. Those are two great characteristics for a trade to have. But you can see here how it's totally reversed this earnings dump, exploded higher, gained 27% following earnings in late April, and hasn't looked back since. And now it's kind of right here. How's it going to consolidate up here in this area where everybody sold it back in December, January in the 17s? And will that complete like a bigger base? I think it will. The way I look at this one is this is your base right here. And if it can go, then this basing pattern is complete. I'd want to see like it close above 18 before I like wave the green flag and say like coast is clear on this one. But very intriguing that a company that's universally perceived as being kind of terrible, like Snap, is doing well. You can attribute that to like the talk of the TikTok ban or whatever, but they seem to be turning some sort of a corner here. I don't think they're going to be the next Facebook. but I do think they could break out of the space and run and become a good trading stock again on the long side. That's nice to see. And then Pinterest is doing the same thing. People kind of forget about this one. It's another one that's like kind of a tough trader. You can see how reported earnings and nobody liked them, and it was down 10%, and then it just sort of faded for an entire quarter. And then all of a sudden it reports earnings again. They're actually good. Shocker, up 20%. And now it's breaking out today, right now before our very eyes, up 2%. I think this kind of completes the base right here. I really like the looks of this one heading into later this week. I think it could run. Something might be percolating here. Again, I don't think Facebook has anything to worry about, or Meta has anything to worry about, that Pinterest is going to come and eat their lunch. However, I think we have a change in trend here, and I think that's what's most important from a trading perspective. Kind of want to hop on board this one. It looks really good.
Yep. I feel like that way. Does Etsy, and now I know Etsy, these things are all very sporadic. Snap, Pins, Etsy. Is Etsy doing anything reasonable these days, or is that one like horrible? That one's fallen off.
I don't put Etsy in this category because I feel like Etsy is just a crappy eBay.
Yeah, that's good that
And
you don't, because that chart proves that you were correct in not putting them with
yeah,
those other ones.
yeah, I don't like. I mean, like, I think that's a tough one. Etsy's a marketplace. It's not really a social network.
Yep.
Pinterest, I don't really know how to use Pinterest, but it kind of toes the line there. And I don't really know how popular it is, but the fact that the stock is improving kind of has piqued my interest more than anything. But like I said, like, I'm not super excited about the fundamentals of either Snap or Pinterest. I think they're improving. I think the market price is showing that they're improving. The market likes it, but Etsy it's kind of an eBay. And maybe that's kind of a rude thing to say about eBay, because eBay doesn't look half bad. I mean, it's kind of messy right here, but yeah, I don't really know what to make of it and what its prospects are. The chart just looks kind of like junk to me, and so I'm going to leave it and kind of split it off from the other two.
Yep. All right. Well, we're crashing up against legitimate lunchtime and end time for top trades. But Gunnar, I'll wrap up a little bit, right? If you're looking for downside in the market, it doesn't seem like it's happening. If you're looking for strength in certain things like metals, and whether they're precious metals or something like copper, seems like it's happening. And then you've got a bunch of these different smaller stocks that just, maybe not smaller, but they're just like, they're in off sectors. They might be rotation plays. There's a lot of decent looking charts out there. Whereas when when you get the feel of the full market, it seems a little choppier than some of these other ones really look. So plenty of stuff out there, and it's a good stock pickers market. And if you can find them, some decent trades out there that keep continuing through. And now I'm going to pay attention, because if Pins goes on, Pins or Snap, we'll see. That one looks pretty interesting. All right. Well, we appreciate it, Gunnar. Thanks for everyone chiming in on comments and everything else. If you've got anything, throw it into, just the daily trading desk chat. If you have anything that you want us to cover in these weeklies, a lot of times we're just going through, this is what me and Gunnar do in the office. We're just, hey, what's hot today? What's going up? What do we like? I'll talk about fundamentals. He'll talk about charts he sees breaking out. Same thing that we're doing here, but it's a good way to stay in touch with the tides, and when we see a decent wave coming, we ride it. So we appreciate it, Gunnar. Thanks for everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
See y'all.